This is a story about aggression and depression. This is a story about nature versus nurture. But at the heart of it all, this is a story about fruit flies. You might recognize these critters scooting around your kitchen eating your food, but apart from being a pest, the fruit fly has a streak of violence. Just like many animals across the animal kingdom, when two flies see something they want, they fight over it. Fruit flies have got the attention of a lab studying aggression at Harvard Longwood Medical School. Researchers in this lab stage and study fly bites in order to examine the genetics behind aggression. Why flies? According to Dr. Ed Kravitz, the lab head, there are more tools available to study fruit flies than any other animal.
If you're interested in studying behavior, you want to have a whole lot of things under your control. And with fruit flies, you have incredibly powerful genetic methods that you can essentially do anything that you want in the nervous system, going down to single nerve cells and manipulating them while animals behave.
To prepare flies to fight, Kravitz's lab controls the entire fly life cycle starting from birth. Normally, flies mate and lay their eggs wherever. But in the lab, the female fly lays eggs in a vial filled with food. Then she is removed from the vial. After a few days, these eggs hatch into hungry maggots. Once the maggots grow large enough, they stick to the sides of the vial and develop a hard shell called a pupa. During this stage, researchers move each pupa into individual vials. A few days later, the adult flies hatch alone. Isolation is important because it prevents the flies from developing a social hierarchy. When the flies meet for the first time in a fighting chamber, they meet as equals.
You might wonder, how do we tell apart one fly from another? And so before we set up the first fight, usually one day before the fight, we anesthetize them with the CO2 gas. That's why we have all this pretty tubing set up to put the flies here, and the gas goes through the tubing, through the pad, and the flies fall asleep. And that way we can paint them. We put a dab of paint on the thorax, on their back. It dries out very fast, and put them back in the original vials.
On fighting day, a researcher uses special tubing to transfer the flies from their original vials to the fighting chamber. Normally, flies only fight in same-sex pairings, male against male, female against female. In a fight between females, the fight starts at a low intensity when two flies see something they both want: yeast, a delicacy for flies. The females start fencing with their legs and shoving with their arms. The most aggressive move is the headbutt. A typical female fight lasts about 30 minutes, and surprisingly, at the end, the two will actually end up sharing the food they were fighting over. A fight between males gets more intense. Males may fight over yeast or over a female. They chase, they fence, they wrestle, and they box. These fights can last over 3.5 hours, and in the end, there's only one winner, which is determined by a lunge. Since the Harvard flies are isolated from birth, researchers believe that certain genes determine sex-specific fighting patterns. Kravitz decided to investigate a well-known fruit fly gene called fruitless.
If you manipulate the fruitless gene, you get males courting males instead of courting females. So that's been known about for a long time. And we said, well, all right, well, let's see if fruitless is involved in the male and female patterns of aggression as well.
Kravitz's lab marked the fruitless gene and found that it existed in 2,000 neurons of the fly's brain. The researchers reviewed all these neurons and isolated the ones responsible for fighting patterns. In the end, researchers found that fruitless is expressed differently in males and females. Manipulating gene expression could make males fight like females, and females fight like males. When pairing these Frankenstein flies against each other, it caused a lot of confusion. A female with a male gene will be aggressive. She will be the first to attack, and she will lunge. An aggressive attack move that a female would regularly not do, let alone against a male. Because the male has a female brain, he doesn't know how to use the more aggressive fighting moves that an unaltered male would have, so he backs off. In the end, both flies seem confused. After watching thousands of fly fights over the years, researchers discovered more than sex-specific fighting patterns. They noticed that the act of losing has devastating implications for future fights. Like humans, flies act depressed after losing.
The losers, if you separate the losers out and pair them in second fights with a familiar winner or a non-familiar winner, they fight differently. But they lose all second fights. So they develop what we call a loser mentality.
The loser mentality can even override physical advantages. In books and movies, bullies are bigger and stronger than everyone else. Take Biff in Back to the Future. In a fight between a bully and a regular guy, you'd probably put your money on the bully. Kravitz's lab bred a family of flies that was stronger and more aggressive than regular flies. But if a bully fly loses one fight, the loser mentality takes over. Just like Biff was a loser for life after losing to McFly, a defeated bully fly will lose all future fights, not just against other bullies, but against regular flies too.
So it's a classic nature-nurture sort of situation, and the nurture part of it, what they've experienced, trumps the genetics in this case.
For Kravitz, the loser flies may hold the key to understanding human depression. He's now targeting a neurochemical class called amines, searching for the fly's loser trigger. Amines, notably serotonin and dopamine, are known to be important in allowing male flies to reach higher levels of aggression than females. These happen to be the same chemicals involved in human depression. Kravitz's lab has now isolated the exact pairs of dopamine and serotonin neurons that, when manipulated, could hold aggression in check. In the future, this line of research could lead to new treatments for humans.
If we can get more insight into how the circuit works, we might be able to design better drugs.
The more Kravitz's lab learns about the entire circuitry of fly neurology, the more we will know about how to slow aggression and alleviate depression, for flies, and for other animals too. Until then, take a moment to appreciate the fruit flies that pop up in your kitchen. They may be annoying, but their brains may hold the keys to understanding our own.